today. Me and the fellow presenters, we just had already some time to talk a little bit after all the technical stuff in advance, and it was really interesting already to hear from memorials from around the world. One thing first, unfortunately, Mr. Gatera from Rwanda can't join us. He just sent an email a few hours ago that he fell very sick yesterday. So he can't join us today, but we wish him the very best for a quick recovery. As you can see in the screen sharing, if you haven't done so, if you want to, please tell us something about yourself in the chat. So use the chat function, a little bit about yourself, from where you are joining us, what's your interest in the topic of today, and so on, so everybody can get an idea on who is actually here with us. In general, if you haven't done so, mute your microphone. I think it's clear. We will start recording this. Oh, we already did. So if you don't want to be seen later on, please shut down your camera as well. So I think the last 5 months have been challenging for memorials as well as for other cultural institutions all around the world. And because of that, we had the idea to actually look at the little bit perhaps more positive side of things. So the positive things that came out of this crisis. And as we represent the education department at the memorial site of a former concentration camp, we decided to focus on questions of historical education. Over the last years, we have been in contact with a lot of different memorials all over the world and made a lot of friends. And so we invited some colleagues from institutions that also deal with violent and often genocidal pasts in the 20th century. So during the next hours, we will hear about current projects from Cambodia, Croatia, and Argentina. We will start with the presentation from Cambodia. Then there will be some time for questions. Regarding the questions, we would ask you to use the chat function for that as well. So you can ask questions you want to already during the presentations. If you like to, my colleague Max is going to collect them and then organize the discussion afterward. If you don't or can't write at the moment, please use the raise your hand function in Zoom. If you haven't used that, you can normally find it if you open the participant or Teilnehmer box. It's on the bottom normally of your screen. And then on the right, there's opening a box and there's a raise your hand function that you can use. And then Max knows and can unmute you. We would advise you, if you use that, to keep your questions short, so we can introduce as many of your questions as possible. After that, we'll do a short break and then 2 more presentations and again, time for questions. After that, we'll do some breakout sessions. Those of you who have been used Zoom or other video conferencing software before probably know that. For the others, we're going to split up in groups of 5, so small groups, and we'll mix the groups by chance. So hopefully you will have the possibility to meet some new people that you can talk to. We'll provide some general questions for that, but yeah, you can also use the time to just reflect on what you heard before. So, and then we'll come back here again, possibility to final words, and that's it. Yeah, before we start with the first presentation, just some introducing words from me, some thoughts on the topic of the workshop from the perspective of the education department at the Dachau Memorial Site. When we thought about what we learned from this, in the last few months, the first thing that came to mind for us was digitalization. And one of the things that we realized is that institutions with already existing structures, such as a strong social media presence, existing digital projects, trained staff for that, had it much easier when they were closed, as in Germany it happened in March. And for institutions that have never dealt with digital programs or that had just a rudimentary infrastructure, it was much harder. But what we learned is that it helped if you had at least what you might call like the mindset for that. That's, I guess, how you might describe my own institution. So we were still in the last phase of launching our new website at that point in March. So we had a website that was over 10 years old and not usable for anything anymore. When we closed in March, we only had a Facebook page, still have, so a social media presence. We only had like one bigger digital educational project going on. And this was a project that actually depended on coming to the Memorial site to use a augmented reality app on their smartphones. So, but the point is, we had been talking about digital projects for a year, and so we were actually ready. So I guess for us, the closing was what we actually needed to move forward much faster than we actually thought would ever happen. So, and I found an interesting quote on that from Tobias Ebrecht-Hartmann from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, who started a survey on Holocaust memorial institutions and the COVID-19 situation. And he already wrote like a small blog article on the survey, and there he wrote, hence the question evolves whether the COVID-19 pandemic as a global challenge did not only catalyze the digital transformation of Holocaust memory, but also symbolizes and even more reinforces the transition from what Annette Wiwiorka had described as the era of the witness to digital commemoration. And so that's definitely true for us, so that this transformation to digital commemoration is something that is definitely happening for us right now. The second thing that came to mind for me was sustainability, because at the beginning we were thinking that we had to act like really fast, that we had to put out anything like because we are now closed and we have to do something. But after the first week, we decided that we would not rush things, that we would act sustainable. For example, what we did were like digital live tours on Facebook. And from the beginning on, we then decided that we would treat them like a permanent project, not as something to just use during the crisis. So we took 6 weeks to actually gather all the technical equipment, write manuals, create a concept for the tours. And that actually worked. We did 26 tours by now, and we were able to build a fan base actually that is interested to stick with us also in the future, as for this tool, as a survey we just created showed for us. One other thing that we realized was it's important to not just focus on digital tools as well. So after reopening, we were looking also for formats that were that we might use in the current situation with social distancing and so on. For example, that we introduced a format that we called Cicerones. It's like information stations on the memorial site that we now have like every weekend, where on 9 different stations, guides, some of our guides are giving information for the visitors that are coming right now, because it's no school classes coming right now still, and so it's mostly tourists, mostly individual visitors, and for them this works much better right now than guided tours, where we have to had much smaller groups right now. And and one last thing that I especially took from the crisis is that we developed a much closer bond between the different groups working at the Memoria site. For example, on the one side, especially the educational department, the archive, or the press department. So the ones of working full-time or being more on the conceptual and administrative side of things, and our guides on the other side. So the guides being the ones being normally closer to the everyday practice of education. And during the last 5 months, we have actually been working together much more closely on questions of how to conceptualize our education. We have been doing a lot of trainings with them, and so this is something that I've been able to experience as a real chance actually in the last few months. So before we start with the first presentation, just perhaps as a closing for me, that there are still, I guess, a lot of open questions right now that need to be tackled by education departments in memorial sites. And I would like just to address a few of them that came to mind. So for me, a big question is still, how do we connect and interlock digital and analog forms of education? Then how do we achieve more accessibility in digital formats? So in German, we would call that the Bildung für alle, or education for everyone. And I think it's important to think more about real inclusionary digital education. So then, especially for institutions that don't rely that much on governmental funding, it's important that we have now all probably learned much more about how to engage with audiences online, but it's important also to think about how we might turn these digital offerings perhaps into revenue. So if people aren't able to come to our site, but more visiting us through digital offerings. And the end, and also something that I think is important is how we make sure that knowledge on digital tools and format is not just expert knowledge being in the hands of just a few people in every institution, but something that's available throughout the whole institution. So yeah, that's like as a short introduction, and now I will give over to my colleague Max, and we will start with our guest from Cambodia.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Steffen, for this short introduction about the situation in the Dachau Memorial Site. My name is Maximilian Lütgens. I also work for the education department in Dachau and will lead the discussion later on. And yeah, now we start with the first lecture. For the first lecture, we would like to welcome Nisay, who is head of the project teams and member of the exhibition team at the Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum. The Tuol Sleng Genocide Museum is located in Phnom Penh, the capital of Cambodia, and focus on the Cambodian genocide. The site is a former secondary school, which was used as security prison 21 by the Khmer Rouge regime. And from 1976 to 1979, an estimated 20,000 people were imprisoned at Tuol Sleng. Nisay has been working at the museum for 11 years, and he does many tours for the museum and also reporting on his family history during the genocide. The young generation is particularly important to him so that history can be prevented from repeating itself. And the part of his job that he likes best is going to schools with a mobile exhibition and accompanying the students to learn more about the museum. Yeah, now we are looking forward to the lecture, and yeah, I would like to hand over to Nisay, who is participating during dinner time because in Cambodia it's already 8 p.m. So yeah, thank you very much for that, and yeah, Nisay, you can start now.
Okay, thank you, Lud, and thank you, Steffen, for introducing me to the every participants. And I'm so sorry that I cannot see many of you. I can see 44 participants are now joining. But yes, as Lüt already introduced me, and I've been working for this museum for like 11 years, from 2009. And I just newly promoted to be the director of this museum in February 2020. So it's kind of young experience being the director in the time of COVID-19. It's the world outbreak. And just before coming to this, I was helping the museum in developing the program, educational program, and exhibition. So because of time is limited, and then I would like to go through my presentation. Just as you know that since March 18, the the government of Cambodia declared to close every museum in the in terms of to protecting from the spreading of the COVID-19. So we don't have any in visitors, and even those we opened in June 1st, very uh, June 1st. Since then, we don't have many visitors, and during the time of COVID, we the staff have trying to deal with this situation because most of the program of the museum are working with the group of students, and since the government closed the school, and we could not really um, work with the students, and many of the program has been postponed. So, but anyhow, we trying to deal with this problem by trying to work with different platform, and currently we are working with on the Zoom platform to do one of the program which call is public talk. So if we bring students, we invite them to join this talk, and we invite fresh researcher or the researcher who had done something related to the Khmer history to have them to talk. So this is our normal program, and this year we work remotely because of the outbreak. And at the meantime, besides focusing on the educational program, the team had did something very another important task, important project, which was funded by Korean government, which call it a digitization project. So it means like Lutz has already mentioned that there were 20, at least around 20,000 people were in prison and executed in just 4 years time, like let's say 4 years. And many of those people were documented their confession, they were documented their photograph, their biography, and the Khmerus themselves, they were having their daily notes, their magazine. So all of these documents were were already listed in the Memory of the World Register in 2009. And since then, we working on digitization in 2018. That up to now, there are around, let's say, more than 400,000 pages of this document have been digitized and would be accessible for everyone through our website. So we are working with this, and we want to make this platform. Can I share my screen now? So I would like to show you our website. It's still uh, on testings. So this is our archive website where researchers and students can access from their home country to our photograph, like 6,000 photograph and negative, and like 20,000 pages of confession and so on. So you can see here people they have menus, and I can just go to this point. But at the moment, public cannot access, as I mentioned, that we still on checking and finding errors before public allowing public to access to this website. So this website would play very important role in the way of educating people about the Khmer history, because they could access to uh, the original document which was kept in the museum. Sorry, I don't know whether this is internet problem or not. Sorry to everyone. So just in short, then, so you can see our some of photograph is because of the terms of rights, and in the pictures itself is in a very traumatic condition, then we cannot visitor cannot access to it. But anyhow, they can still see some other sources like detainee names and so on. So, and on the other hand, they can see, if you can see here, it is this way. This is the list of the Khmer staff who were working during the time. So from this point, people they can come and to the website, and then they can access to all of this. So it doesn't need them to come to the museum, because previously many researchers and many students who want to do research on this, they need to come to the museum. But uh, in the way to make them easy access, we have this project. And another way is like the way to protect the document, to make sure that this document would no longer use direct use by the visitor. I'm sorry, I cannot make it larger. So this is important task for. Sorry, this is so here it's just a sample. This is a list of people to be destroyed. During the time of the Khmer Rouge, they didn't use the term kill. They used the other term like destroy, which really completely gone. That these people would not come back. They could not survive. So they would have the list like this were on 10 March 1978. So you can see there were many in just one page. This is just a page. So the name and so on. So from this, they can learn from the about the confession. He can, especially Cambodian, they can search for their relative, because up to now they still have Cambodian people looking for their lost relative during the time of the Khmer Rouge. Besides this, you will also see. Just wait one second. But at the same time, I like to when this accessible, because some of the documents, some of photographs are in the manner of restriction, because it affected to the dignity, it affected to personal information. You may cannot find it on this public platform, but if the researcher or student want to search for that, they can come and then give us ask us for direct access, which means they can still search for these photos, for this document. So before you can see, we have our main website and to see the photograph, but cannot really see this information. So we provide more information for public to understand our collection. So we have document, we have biography, we have confession, photo, negative, and list, as I already showed. So they can look for here, like we have we have the category and the dimension of the photos and so on. So this is one of the main projects that we are doing during the COVID-19, to say openly that we, the museum, is not really in the standard way of using digital, but we try our best using this kind of platform to give more access, and we hope to finish this project uh, by the end of this year, so everyone can access. And so what I'm saying is, it doesn't mean that because of COVID and we did this project, the project had been started since 2018, but at the time of COVID, the staff, we divide the staff, half of them working from home, the other half working at the museum, just to protect from the further spreading the virus. So some of the staff, they managed to check all of this, and we hopefully it could be published very soon. And besides having uh, this 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 website, uh, we have now our own website where you all can access. Here we have different languages. This is our main website, so everyone could come. You can see uh, our I don't know how to call domain names of the website. Here is our government, and you can still see some of the collection from here. But at next time, you can access from here by clicking this menu, archive menu. It will link you to the other website, which is really in detail. But at the same time, we are using this platform for to give information to the student, to our audience about what museum is doing and what museum is working on. So what we are using the digital platform to access to our audience, so they can send us email, and we to be uh, in Cambodia, the platform they use many is Messenger and Telegram. So we try to deal with the student using this another platform, Messenger, and we work really close with the student who used to participate in our program. So this is the way that our museum is dealing with this situation in the last, let's say, 4 or 5 months since the outbreak of COVID. And I think this is beside that we work with different organizations and to encourage the young to do the research. And but unfortunately, as I said, the school closed and we cannot take the student to our museum, so we work with them remotely. And we have now the training on the research because we want them to do more research. So we consult from museum science and working with the team of education. So in our museum, we also have we have a challenge with the number of, uh, of staff who work with the education team. We have like 4 or 5 staff working for this education team, and 4 more as a tour guide who provide the guiding when students coming. But as you know, we don't have visitors, we don't have students to come during this time. So we try to reach the student from different platform, but what we use mostly is Telegram, Facebook here in Cambodia, and yes, and then the last point is about the website. So I think this is what we can do, as this resource from the museum is limited. I mean, regarding to human resources, we have in our museum we have two IT men who working with to deal with all of these problems, and we cannot really hire another company to help us as we don't have any income at the moment. So the other problem we are facing is about the income or expenditure that we need to think of. So I could what this is what I could share to every one of you, and please ask me question if you have. I would say thank you, Lutz, for this. Or I still have more time to go on. I cannot see any minutes here.
There's a bit of time. You can go on 5 more minutes, I would say.
Okay. So just to go a bit more regarding to our platform. So I want to use this opportunity to let you understand that in soon future you can communicate with us. You can search from this, but please be note that some of the documents you cannot really find on the public access, like the website here, because we found some challenge with dignity and their how to say because what we can show you here is just the photograph of the person who was detained, and we don't show any photo of the person who died at the time. So just to take this opportunity to let you and any and other participants in this workshop to how to say to realize this fact. But it doesn't mean that you cannot access. You still can whenever you send us request letters, and we have this letter to as a reference to prove that you would search for in terms of researching or for educating. It would be fine to give you access to any other document which is really restricted in the website. So thank you, Lutz, and I think that's it from my side at this moment. I hope you can get from my point.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nisay. A very interesting presentation, and yeah, of course, a very nice and very modern website. And so now we have, I would say, 20 more minutes for the discussion, and I'm sure that there are a few questions to Nisay. As Steffen already said, you can ask your questions through the chat or in person via the hand raising function. And I see there are a few questions, and Barbara, Tim already answered them, but I think I can ask them again. Claudia Haidt has a question to you, Nisay. She wrote, "This looks really exciting and like a tremendous amount of work. When will the public be able to visit the website and the materials?"
Sorry, I don't hear anything from you.
Okay. I will repeat it. There's a question by Claudia Haidt. She writes, "Nisay, this looks really exciting and like a tremendous amount of work. When will the public be able to visit the website and the material?" Okay. Nisay, I think we lost him. Okay, I think there are some problems. Cambodia. Nisay, can you hear us?
No, I think he just left the meeting, I think.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Right.
Well, I could jump in
perhaps,
and
yeah,
help.
that would be nice.
If that's so. Hello to Germany. Hello from Cambodia. Yeah, I can. Meanwhile, I'll try to use Telegram to contact Nisay if he can
Yes.
come back or not. Let's see. But meanwhile, yes, as I answered already in the chat. Yeah, we're still working on that website. It was a huge project. It takes now, it's kind of 3 years are now going to have been passed working on that website. We hope that it will be launched by end of this year. As Nisay had mentioned, altogether it's 4 million data. So they digitized nearly 500,000 pages. So that was the first big step, and then it had to be indexed and a database created to have the back data for this website. 2 different views on documents and detainee, or we call it detainee view and document view. And the one thing Nisay, I think just missed out to mention, the main reason why we're not going to show the confessions and biographies is because they were created under torture or under threat of torture. So that's why we're not going to show them publicly. And so researchers would need to come to the archive to look at them. But sure, if families would request access, they would get it. But I'm not going to hold now a co-speech, so I'll keep it to the questions.
Sorry,
Nisay is back, yeah? Yeah.
I have a problem with internet connection. I'm so sorry.
Ah, great. Now, Nisay, now you can answer.
So
Yes.
sorry to everyone.
Yeah. And Barbara already answered the first question. Thank you for Barbara.
Okay. Thank you, Barbara.
We can go on with another one by Lauren Hanlon. The question is, are there plans to offer a selection of translated archival documents for educational purposes, not just for researchers? Do you understand
again,
it?
please? Just one more thing. I cannot see. Can I see question?
Yes. Can you see the chat function?
Yeah, I can see.
Can also.
I think.
Yeah, I already sent the question to you. Okay.
Yes. Thank you. Are there any plans or offers that shall translate archival document for you? At the moment, we don't have it yet. We don't plan any, but for the educational purpose, we always welcome. And I think we can communicate and we can talk about this later. But from the project, we haven't planned to make any translation of this document or this part of this archive into another language. Not yet, but we can discuss, we can communicate, and to see how we work with this kind of field. We can still have a possibility to translate it, I mean, in the future, but at the moment we don't have any plan yet.
Okay. There's another question by Svea Hammerle. Do you see it in the chat function? I also can.
Yeah, I see.
I might have missed it during the presentation, but I'm wondering how you are dealing with the copyright of the pictures that you are publishing in the internet. Are you using Creative Commons license?
It's kind of not that easy question, but I think Barbara has sent, because this is with our archive, and we have right to do that. And but the other thing is that in Cambodia context, as you can see in our permanent exhibition, we have displayed photograph of victims, and we have no any complaints since then, since 79. So people seem, even though we know they have relative of the dead people coming and visit the museum, and they point out there were uncle, they were the auntie, or they he or she herself in the picture of the galleries. But this is we don't make any complaint. So I mean, the first thing is this is our own archive. We can do it. The second thing, we don't have any complaint from a relative of the victims. So this is kind of promoting, uh, allowing people to search for the relative. So it is fine. We don't have we don't use any common license or no, just from our own account. And
Okay, thank you. I have one question. I read in an interview that you like it to go to schools with a so-called mobile exhibition. So how does it
Yeah.
work? How do you work with students when you go into the schools?
we first we show directly to what the museum has out of the permanent exhibition. But we got comment. I mean, we show the very dramatic features as we don't have much knowledge on that. We just want the people understand what was happening. And now we change our strategy. It means we bring this to school. We use animation. We use art in our panels. So the student can not only learn about history of the museum, but they can understand how people were interrogated and how the picture and the biography of some of the pictures of the people who were selected and put into our mobile exhibition. And uh, our staff will be there at school to do a guiding and also to respond to their question if they have any. That's what we commonly do during the mobile exhibition. And we did in school in Phnom Penh and close to Phnom Penh, the capital of Cambodia. As this is our first target to bring them in and to reach them out. So mobile exhibition is mostly work with public school because we see that almost every public school doesn't have any transportation to bring their student in. So that's why we want this to be reached to the student. So we focus mostly with public school.
Okay, very good work. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And there's another question by Claudia Candidori. How is the Cambodian population reacting to your work in general and since COVID-19?
Yes, as you know that I mean in general they like what we are doing because we the place or let's say the only government place to be preserved and to commemorate what was happening in that 4 years time, while others were under the NGO, under the private sector, but not many. And in Cambodia, Tuol Sleng, my museum is the place where it happened. So it happened here, and we turned the former Prime site into the museum. So in general, people they don't have any negative reaction. They have a positive reaction toward what we are doing. But the only challenge we are facing is that older Cambodian not really want to visit our museum because it recalls their bad memories, the very bitter memories during the time. So they don't want to visit, and somehow it affects to their children not really want because something like bringing bad luck or recalling bad story. But as I said earlier, that now young Cambodian are really interested in this history. They come to visit the museum. And I see what Claudia asked since COVID. Yes, in COVID time is very tough time for us, and not the people coming in, and we try to make sure that they are visiting the museum, visiting the museum with no fear of affecting. So we how to say, we respect the policy of the government, especially from Ministry of Health, what we should do, distancing, wearing masks, and cleaning hands, and so on. So we follow this guideline, and they feel safe to come to visit the museum. So in general, it's good, but it doesn't mean they have no criticism to us. But somehow it mostly with the politicians, I would say. But in general, it's fine. They support with what the work we are doing.
Okay, that's nice to hear. Okay, yeah. There's another one. Another question by Claudia. When Cambodians do not want to visit your museum, do I see it right that COVID-19 is a chance to bring your work into the people's home without a physical visit? So maybe is it a chance, COVID-19?
Yeah, let's say in how to say, in a difficult time we see opportunity. So I cannot say 100% that we could bring our work to everybody homes with a physical visit, but we try our best to reach this goal. So I mean, to let many people understand about this. So we are using like in my presentation in Cambodia, we see many people love looking at Facebook. So we create our social page to reach this information to them, and to reach what we have in the museum. But we could not really fulfill this task in a year, in 2 years. I think it needs a lot of time to do it, and needs people to think together to create a platform or work plan to do that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And there's another question by Natalie Jacobson. You mentioned critique from politicians. What kind of problems do you face concerning these interactions?
It's hard to explain. I mean, as you know, every politician, whenever they see opportunity to bring more supporters, they will use it. And in our museum, sure we have. This is a true fact that Cambodian die during the time, but somehow they try to turn it. I mean, but it's not really a big problem. It just they use this platform.
Okay. And there's another question by George Poulados. It is easy for you to talk more. Is it easy for you to talk more about the reactions of the Cambodians to your work? Can you classify their reactions?
Oh, it's really I cannot say because what I was talking in the moment is from my observation, my notice that I see that they love, they not really love, they support what we are doing, what we try to preserve all these memories for younger generation. And I don't have any team to help me to do this kind of research on how is their reaction, and we cannot really classify their reaction in the level, which level, I don't know. I cannot say that. Sorry to George that I cannot give you the right answer. I hope you understand that.
Yeah, I think so. Doesn't matter. And yeah, another question by Peter Volta. Do you have founding problems since COVID? So how is the situation now for you?
Yes. As we were lucky that the government support us to give us opportunity to use admission for running. the museum. But now, since we have no visitor, we are facing this problem. And we, in the names of the museum and the government sector, we're working really close with the Ministry of Culture to deal with this problem. I hope that soon we will find a solution for this. But at the moment, the staff still working, just kind of, as you know, that we not to reduce the number of staff, but try to maintain them to work for us. It's in another policy. Sure, we have a funding problem since we have no visitor.
Okay, Barbara, Tim also wrote something about that. That it is a government institution, yeah? Okay.
We are not an NGO, we are under government.
Yes. Okay, are there any other questions? Maybe I have one last question. You already mentioned that you like to, or that the people in Cambodia are using Facebook, Messenger, or Telegram. Do you also think about maybe live tours on Facebook when the museum is closed?
We were, I joined
you said that you like to bring the museum into the schools, yeah? So it could be a great idea, maybe.
I was thinking of using this platform to highlight what we have in the museum. I already I asked my team to do this, but in which scale I cannot say at the moment, but hopefully I will use this platform to bring our educational tools to them, especially to those, because it's kind of, we have more than many students who join with us to be our messenger. They join us and then they spread the message to anyone in their classmate, in their neighborhood, to understand the value of learning history from the museum, to see what is inside the museum. So I would say we will in the future to design this kind of platform.
Okay, very nice. Sounds good.
Maxi, ich hätte noch eine Frage.
Oh, yeah.
Nisay, I would have firstly, I'm deeply impressed about the work you're doing. I remember when I was seeing this in Europe, we saw this film Killing Fields, which is very impressive. I posted the link to this film. It's visible openly in YouTube, so it's really highly recommendable to watch this film and this very, very sad story that happened in Cambodia. So my questions to you would be, you only showed the faces and the fates of the victims, but also are you also focusing on the murderers in your exhibition, or are they completely not mentioned? And I think that there's a deep wound in your country, you know, and there was a deep wound in Germany, and there was a long way till we got to the point that we are now with this memorial sites and with this educational works with the school classes. And the wound in your country is still much more fresh. It happened only 40 years ago, and so what is going on in your country? How is there some reconciliation between the victims and the murderers? I think in Southern Africa there was very good steps taken to get to some reconciliations, or I think also in Burundi and Rwanda. And so how is it in your country?
Yes, sorry, can I know your name? I can.
His name was Stefan Burger.
Stefan.
Yeah.
Stefan, can I call you Stefan, right?
Yes.
Thank you, Stefan, for your question. Yes, as you said, that it is really fresh for Cambodian to accept this story. It's just like 40 years ago that it just really happened. So the dream is still there, their mind. People still dreams about this sometimes. And yes, it doesn't mean for reconciliation work. We have another NGO in Cambodia who work in this field. And at the museum, we don't have any let's say, capability to do this at the moment. We don't have expertise with us. We don't have staff who experience in this field. But what we can do for the museum side is to bring them together, especially young. But it's not in a way to do the let's say the dialogue between victims and the perpetrators, but it is a dialogue between young Cambodians from different backgrounds, from different religious backgrounds. We did one workshop called Youth and Peace Building Workshop. We bring students from Buddhism, students from Muslim, and Cambodian students from Christianity. So we bring them together, and we call every sect of each religion to give a speech, to let them understand that every religion is good. Not their concept is to bring peace, to bring unity to society, but only a person who is who follow that is more too extreme regarding to that. So we success. I mean, regarding to this term, they come together. They understand the value of the religious. Cambodian Buddhists know the value of Muslim, and Muslim understand what is the tradition of Buddhists, and they all understand. They come close together, even though they are coming from different backgrounds. So this is what one of our reconciliation work we did with. Because we can deal with this problem, but to challenge, to face with, to bring perpetrator and the victim together, the museum still get to have ability to how to say, to moderate them, to stop them or from the fight. You know that. And another way is that from our exhibition, as we have already visited my museum, right? And you can see in the gallery we display mostly the victims, while one or two rooms we display former guard of the Khmer. And just we have another, because we can see that the people still not, some of them, it's hard to say, like, not saying that they don't have how to say to close together, but I'm afraid that when we have more picture of perpetrator, that the people would not really, why we put this picture of the perpetrator, why we need to commemorate them, because they were the people to, but we still think of this problem, but and so that's why at the moment you can see some. So I hope that I can answer to your question. Barbara has just answered to.
Thank you very much, Nisay. Thank you.
Yeah.
How do you say in Cambodian? Thank you.
Okun.
Okun.
Yeah. Okun.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okun to Nisay for your very impressive work and for your presentation and the very open answers. A big applause to you. And I think now it's time for our break. Yeah, Steffen?
Yeah, exactly. We'll do 10 minutes. So we'll meet again, or probably at 4:15 we'll meet again. So it's like a 12-minute break. And yeah, thanks again to Nisay for being so open. So thanks for coming, and we'll see each other again here in at 4:15 for the next two presentations. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we can go on. Okay. Yeah, now we start with the second round and two lectures on education and memory. The first one is about the Jasenovac Memorial by Martina Barešić, and the second one about the Parque de la Memoria by Anitza, Toytoyndjian, and Lila, Vazquez, Laureu. For the first lecture, I would like to welcome Martina Barešić, who is a curator of the Jasenovac Memorial Museum's collections of material objects. The Jasenovac Memorial Site is located in Jasenovac in Croatia, close to the border to Bosnia-Herzegovina. It is in the immediate vicinity of the former Jasenovac concentration camp, the so-called Camp 3, which was in operation from 1941 to 1945. It features the Jasenovac Memorial Museum, which was reopened in November 2006, and an education center. Martina Barešić graduated from the Faculty of Humanities and Social Science in Zagreb, the Department of History, in 2016, and she is working for the Jasenovac Memorial since 2017. As an author and co-author, she participated in the organization of exhibitions and workshops, and she also participated in several international professional seminars and conferences related to the Holocaust and teaching about Holocaust and human rights in general. Yeah, now I'm looking forward to the lecture and hand over to Martina.
Hello, everybody. I'm glad to being here to present the work of Jasenovac Memorial Site. And as Maximilian gave introduction, I work in Jasenovac Memorial for 3 years now. And today I will talk about virtual reconstruction of the camp. And why virtual reconstruction? I will give a context of it now in the beginning, in the first part of my presentation. So I will start to share screen so you can see. Just a second. Okay, I hope that you can see it. Okay, 5. Okay. So Jasenovac Memorial Site was founded in 1968 in order to preserve a remembrance of the victims of the fascist concentration camp, which existed at the same spot. Jasenovac concentration camp was a place of imprisonment, forced labor, and executions, primarily of Serb Orthodox population, with the goal of creating ethnically pure, ethnically clean territory, and also with to be completely eradicated from independent state of Croatia, and Jews and Roma who were discriminated against by racial laws. Also, a large number of Croatian people was killed in the Jasenovac concentration camp as communists and anti-fascists, and also members of the People's Liberation Army of Croatia, and as well as members of the families and other opponents of Ustasha regime. So Jasenovac concentration camp consists of several units on different locations, but today I will mostly focus on the largest unit in former camp. Also, it is the place where the monument was built later. And something I want to talk about in my lecture is also a question of physical remains of concentration camps and the problems we meet when there are none of those remains left. Also, I will present some possibilities on non-invasive reconstructions with educational purposes, on which we are now working. Well, just to explain the photos here, those photos are showing the how the territory of former concentration camp looked like after the war, after Ustasha fled to West. In the last days of war, the Ustasha concentration camp in Jasenovac was shelled, burned, and destroyed during the withdrawal of Ustashas and their flight back to West. The remains of camp buildings were taken by local people to rebuild their houses. So local people came whose houses were destroyed during the war, and they rebuilt their houses with the material you can see. on the photos. So the camp location during 50s became overgrown with weeds and just was left to decay. But in the late 50s, the first steps were taken to mark the area of the camp and to properly commemorate the victims of Jasenovac concentration camp. So in 1966, Bogdan Bogdanovic finished the project of designing a monument to the victims, and his proposal was accepted, which was, as you can see, it is flower memorial. It is meant to be a sign of eternal renewal, superstructure facing two ways, with a crypt looking towards the victims and in whom its roots and crown are planted, and a kind of inverse cupola looking towards the light and the sun. So symbolically, he meant to commemorate the victims due to some peaceful memorial, peaceful monument, as we can call it. Also, locations of the buildings and the mass graves were marked with those mounds you can see around the lake, but the place where the most mass graves were found was across the river. You can see the river Sava on the picture, and across the river is the Donja Gradina, which is a place where around 125 mass graves were found after the war. But on this territory, you can see from above, concentration camp existed. As you can see, there are no physical remains. Buildings in front of the flower are school on the left, and on the right, in the trees, it is here where memorial site is. And visitors, when they come to Jasenovac memorial site, they usually walk to the flower monument and visit memorial museum. To have that in mind, that none of the physical remains was left, I would like to present you our project, which is a result of 3 years of cooperation between Jasenovac memorial site and various institutions like research group SPECS Lab, and SPECS mean synthetic, perceptive, emotive, and cognitive systems. Also, software company Eodyne Systems from Barcelona, and some other partners like University of Amsterdam, Norwegian University of Science and Technology. So those were the main partners on the project. And also other camps, former camps like Westerbork, Bergen-Belsen, Treblinka, Fallstadt, where physical remains are not preserved or there is a minimum of it. And the project is named Accessing Campscapes, Inclusive Strategies for Using European Conflicted Heritage. And it aims to develop inclusive strategies to provide access to Nazi campscapes as well as Stalinist as sites of remembrance, education, and research. Since most of those sites were demolished, others are either monumentalized without physical remnants, or the history there was erased. So project uses non-invasive technologies. So the challenge of a sustainable reuse of this often contested heritage scapes demands an interdisciplinary approach, and it was the basis from which we started. So innovative contribution to research includes various disciplines like heritage studies, conflict archaeology, digital humanities, material culture studies. And in our work in Memorial site, we noticed that I will explain this this screen later, but just to give you a sense of the problem we deal here is that within our work we work with school groups and educational programs and so on, and we noticed difficulties in visualizing the space where when there are no physical remains left, it's very hard to imagine how those looked like. And also we are dealing here with a loss of photographs from that time, and a lot of documents from that time was also burned at the time when the camp was demolished. So that is the difficulty in it. So here every visitor encounters the absence of material traces of the existence of the camp. Only thing that is left is our rails and the eastern embankment, which is formed by prisoners of Jasenovac Memorial Site. And so it is very hard to imagine how it looked like for our visitors. On the picture, you can see how the reconstruction of those buildings look like, and some of the project phases that led to that particular photos were workshops and community interventions, digital and geomapping, forensic research, archaeological practices, and those are non-invasive, mostly digital and shooting with camera, and also oral history and historical research, which is very important in every work, and especially in this one where we used photographic material which we managed to preserve, which is preserved, and that material is mostly from the period of 1945 to 1948, when there was a process of removing the material objects from local people, but commissions were on site and they were taking photographs of the remains. So we used that, and the reconstruction of Jasenovac area at the same time connects reconstruction with camp descriptions. So when you have those are titles on Croatian, but also translation is something which is which we are working on. But you have for example, glavno skladište, which means main warehouse, where the things from personal things from victims were transferred to a warehouse. So when you click on title, you can read more about a particular building and what happened there. This is another angle of that part of the camp where buildings were. Behind, you can see barracks where prisoners were held, and those buildings at front were used mostly for production. So, for example, those buildings with large towers were electric facility and brickworks, and for them we have a bit more resources, unlike some other buildings inside the camp. So you can see that rails were going into the camp. So when you click on the title, you can read more about that building. You can see some other photos, and you can read testimonies from the people who survived. And I think it's very important to use them in that kind of reconstruction. So as a result, so everything you saw is on the application, which is on tablet computers. So for the first time, visitors can move. They can walk freely around the mounds, which represent buildings, and they can see buildings reconstructed in virtual space. In October last year, we had reconstruction was shown for the first time was shown to the public, and we had tested it by a school group, and they were very amazed, which in ways how they can learn about history in very close way, because they know about applications and computers from a very young age, and they are used to it, and they can use it well. So I think that application on tablet will be a great tool for guiding groups and school guidings, because they give you something that you cannot see on the site, but it was there. So this new methodology will be helpful in creating new pedagogical program for school, and in virtual walk at the camp area, visitors will be able to use those tablets to enter the facilities and read more about them. So they will be shown all known and credible data. Also, we will connect material objects, digitized material objects to the application, so they can see on which exact spot on the site was that certain object found. So they can learn in that way also. And the Jasenovac memorial site will aim to integrate new technologies and methodologies into standardized activities of memorial tours, like guiding. As I said, it is a great tool to be used in walking tours. But also visitors can use those tablets freely. For example, if they don't want a guided tour, they can use tablet and guide themselves. So, and research on that way.
Martina, we must come to the end because you already talked 20 minutes.
Okay, sorry, I'm at the
Doesn't
end
matter.
soon. Okay, so I showed you the most important part of the work we did for now, and it's not done yet. It's an ongoing project which includes various technical updates, application extension, and translation. So we will see how it will go. But I think that situation with COVID-19 has pointed us to some new methodologies and new techniques to use, and I think it's good to learn from the situations given. So I'm open for questions now or later. So okay,
yeah,
sorry, just for the end, just a website of the project if anyone is interested in, so you can learn more about it. So that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Martina. A very exciting presentation, and it's very impressive to see your work with the digital reconstructions. It's a bit like in Bergen-Belsen, where also not much is left from the former camp there. And yeah, we will now continue with this second presentation and then go into the discussion with questions about both presentations later. Okay, so you please write your questions into the chat, and Martina will answer later after the the last presentation. Okay, so now we go straight to the last presentation. A warm welcome to Anitza, Toytoyndjian, and Lila Vazquez Laureu, who are participating during breakfast time from Argentina. Thank you very much for that.
Yes.
And Anitza and Lila are working for the education department at the Parque de la Memoria in Buenos Aires. And the Parque de la Memoria, or so-called Remembrance Park, is a public space situated in front of the Rio de la Plata in Buenos Aires. And it is a memorial to the victims of the 1969 till 1983 regime. And it contains a central wall of names, as well as a great number of monuments and sculptures. And Anitza and Lila are giving guided tours for visitors from a wide range of institutions and educational levels, where they are combining art and history. Anitza has a degree in sociology and Lila has a degree in education. And yeah, now I'm looking forward to the last lecture and hand over to both of you, yeah?
Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation, and good afternoon and good evening for the rest of the participants. Here it's more like a morning, let's say. As he said, I'm Anitza, my work colleague is Lila. We work in the education department in Parque de la Memoria. The park, it's a memorial place in Argentina, in Capital Federal, in Buenos Aires. And it was created to remember the victims of the last military dictatorship in Argentina that lasted from the year 1976 up to 1983. The park is a public space, and it was created in the decade of the 90s in Argentina. It was a very complex decade here because at that time there were no trials going on to the militaries that committed crimes during the last dictatorship. We, in the guided tour, said state terrorism is the word we use to refer to that decade, to that period of time in our history. And the park was created when trials were not going on, so it was a very special time that a public space was created with a memorial. And it was created by the legislature of the city of Buenos Aires, and it was created through a law. That law was driven by the human rights organization that has a very important role in our country. For example, mothers and grandmothers of Plaza de Mayo. I don't know if you know them, but they're well known all over the world, let's say, because they have a very important role in our justice and memory here in our country. So they driven a law, and that law drive to the creation of the park. The park has a memorial with the names of the victims of the state terrorism. The monument has an organization. When we visit the monument in our guided tours, we see the monument, the names, information it has. And apart from the memorial, we have sculptures, because art is a very important part of the park, let's say. In fact, we have an art program. So all over the park, we're going to find sculptures that were chosen in a contest made in the end of the decade of the 90s, in 1999, by a special jury. And for example, artists from all over the world, they were chosen their works, and they are now at the park place. For example, those of the photos. Apart from the sculptures and the memorial, the park has an art gallery, which is that one, the Sala País. It's an art gallery where art exhibitions are made also in relation with human rights topics. And with Lila, we work in the education department, and what we do is do guided tours from all levels of education, from kindergarten to universities. So let's say it's a variety of ages, but we have special proposals for each of them and special tours for all of the levels. What we do typically, if there's no COVID, let's say, we walk all over the park, we see the monument, the sculptures, the art gallery, and also we try to enter the gallery because inside there is a database with information of the victims also that are in the monument. They have like a special profile in the database with more information about their life in order to know more about the lives of that people. So it's very, very important, and it's in the website that Lila is showing now, showing the screen. Something very important to emphasize is that in our common day of work, let's say, we don't have technology resources because it's a public space, so it's kind of hard sometimes to have more resources than human resources. So we don't have, let's say, like tablets or technology. So what we do is to use creativity most of the time and to do special projects by, for example, going to schools or receiving them in the park. So when the COVID started, we have to reorganize, let's say, all of our tasks because mostly we receive people because we do guided tours. So it was very difficult to change that, let's say. So first, what we do is to start creating audio guided tours. And what we do, of course, again, with no technology resources, is to record it ourselves because we are 5 people working in the education department. So we recorded ourselves, and one of our work colleagues, let's say, which is part of the communication, he mixed the voices, our voices, with images of the park in order to recreate a guided tour. Those audio guided tours are especially for institutions that work with us most of the time, let's say, for example, kindergarten, primary, secondary, and universities. But anyways, open public, can also do the guided tours. But that's very important because, of course, we know it doesn't replace visiting the park because it's very special because, well, it's the monument, it's next to the river, it's like everything recreates, let's say, a special guide. But anyways, at this time, we know it's useful for many schools that has to work with, also with memory topics, let's say, and human rights topics. So that was one of the things we started to do, to start thinking to give at home, at different houses, the opportunity to visit always the park in that way, by guided tours. So that was one of the tasks we started to do. They are not launched yet, but the idea is that they're going to be uploaded next month for people to visit the park in that way. Anyways, it's the website, but we believe that listening to our explanation, that it's more richer than maybe seeing something written in the website. So that was one of the tasks we started to do. And now Lila is going to explain more of the things we have reorganized.
Yes, can you see the screen, right?
Yes, see.
Great. Here we have materiales pedagógicos.
That's the website of the park, the new website.
Yes, this is our website, and in the educational section, we have all the things that we have created for this special occasion of the COVID. My English is not as good as Anitza, so I'm going to do my best. But here we have some booklets. We have made these ones. I'm going to open this. That's about identity, the identity as a human right.
Yes, in fact, in that part, in that section that Lila was showing, there are other booklets from the past, let's say, and also now in the present, we made some booklets new also.
Yes, the idea was to keep in touch with the schools, with teachers and students. So we have made some booklets for so the teachers could use them in their Zoom classes. For example, this one is about identity, and we have a lot of text of this theme and images and activities. So yes, what we wanted is to keep in touch with schools, because they came to us to know about the park, to know about what happened in the last dictatorship of our country. And now that we are all unable to go there, we made these booklets so in the schools they could work the theme. And also we have made something else in this time that it's a podcast. I think you know what a podcast is. In our last dictatorships, there were lots of books that were forbidden. There was a lot of cultural censorship. So any book that talked about freedom, love, revolution were forbidden. Also, child books. So we read for those books that were forbidden in that moment, and we grabar, los grabamos.
We record them.
We record them, so anyone that want to can listen them. We call them cuentos en libertad, freedom books, free books. We have here seven tales, but next week we are uploading more tales. All of these tales were forbidden in that moment, and the thematics are what I was saying about freedom, about love, about revolution, about politics, about families. Militaries forbid everything that has to do with that. So maybe if you think it's okay, we wanted to play a little bit of one of these tales so you can listen what we have made. It's in our language, but you may enjoy the sounds. Or can you tell me if you can listen when I put play? Do you listen?
Very low.
Make it a bit louder, maybe.
A ver. Ahí va, ¿eh?
El Año Verde fue escrito por Elsa Bornemann, una escritora argentina. Su primera publicación fue en 1975 dentro del libro Un elefante ocupa mucho espacio, con el sello editorial de Librerías Fausto. El libro fue censurado en 1977. Asomándose cada 1 de enero desde la torre de su palacio, el poderoso rey saluda a su pueblo reunido en la Plaza Mayor. Como desde la torre hasta la plaza median aproximadamente unos 700 metros, el soberano no puede ver los pies descalzos de su gente. Tampoco le es posible oír sus quejas. Y esto no sucede a causa de la distancia, sino simplemente porque es sordo.
Well, that was the beginning of El Año Verde, the Green Year, written by Elsa Bornemann. She was forbidden all of her books, and people that had those books in their houses, they had to burn them on fire or hide them, because if someone was found with those books, would be disappeared. So that's the reason why we thought it was important to record them and share them with the community, because they are not any longer forbidden. And especially this is for the little kids. And we thought it was a good idea now in the lockdown to be able to hear these stories. So that's some of the stuff we are working on now in the quarantine. These recordings and all the booklets that mean a lot of work for us, because we had to do a lot of investigation research to be able to make good text and activities for the schools, all in order to supply the fact that we can't be all together in the Memorial Park and make the actual guided visits. So that's all.
Yes, maybe something to add, very important, is that the podcast and the booklets are the main projects we are working nowadays, let's say. And the booklets especially are about human rights topics that, for example, are from the past and from little children, for example, as Lila showed, the booklet of identity, but also for teenagers. And we work, for example, gender identity. Also, bueno, I don't know the word in English, but pueblos originarios, some natives, I don't know if it's the word exactly, but we try to work at native
groups, maybe?
For native groups,
communities.
Yes, native community, in order to maintain and to get teenager conscious about human rights, even though we are in a pandemic situation. And in fact, we're working in new booklets about similar topics also.
I think you mean indigenous communities, probably.
Yes, indigenous communities, that one.
Yes.
And that's it. We are working on that also. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much for both of you for an exciting presentation and very impressive website. And yeah, of course, I also like these audio tracks or the podcast. And you also got great comments about that in the chat. So now we have, I would say, another 10 minutes for questions for Martina and both of you. And I think I will start with a question for Martina by Christine Fössmeier. She asked you how much did it cost, and I would say that another question also, is it the same technology also used at the Bergen-Belsen Memorial site?
Yes, it is the same project. Also Treblinka, Fallstadt, those are the sites who were included in project, and the project is funded by European Union by Project Horizon 2020 for the amount of 1.2 million euros for all the projects included in that IC access. And also Ministry of Culture in Croatia also funded some tablets, because a lot of money went on tablets. And I saw the question earlier that somebody asked about the number of tablets.
Yes.
We have few tablets, 5, and we applied for some more, but because it is ongoing project and we are still searching our ways, to get some funds to make something more visible. So it is. Application is downloaded on tablets which are on site here on Jasenovac Memorial, and it is not available for downloading for now.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Then the first question to Annie and Lila. Did you do the podcast by yourself or did you get professional stuff?
It's ourselves.
We record ourselves with our cell phones, and one of our colleagues that works in communication, he used the media, he mixed and used it and uploaded in the podcast.
Okay.
That was the way.
Yeah, amazing work. There is another question to Martina. Do you believe that augmented reality, etc., will help people have a better understanding of Jasenovac and what happened there?
Well, I think it's a great tool in education programs. For example, it depends on how people are interested in the topic, but most of the people who come here, I suppose they are. And for the school groups, I think it's very good to approach to educational programs with that kind of things, with virtual realities. Because what we noticed with the school groups that used the application, they are more interested in finding, finding objects inside the museum which corresponds to on-site buildings, and they see it as a kind of research project. So I think yes, it will help.
Yeah. Thank you. Another two questions for Lila and Annie. Also the question from Christine Versmeyer, how much does a podcast like this cost? And another question by George Polados. Since Latin America has suffered from many dictatorships, for example in Chile or Brazil, wouldn't it be a good idea to work with people from other countries working on similar projects?
The podcast is free on Spotify, and if it costs, Lila, I don't know, to upload it, I think no.
No, we didn't have to pay anything to make it. It's just us with our cell phones, and we had those books, so it was for free. And when we made the booklets, that's also all human resources. We didn't pay any extra stuff.
Yes. And the other question was working with other sites of memory. Yes, it would be a great idea, but sometimes it's very complex because in some cases we cannot even get in contact with sites of here in Argentina. So sometimes it's kind of complex to contact other people from other countries, but it would be a great idea to travel also and to visit other memory sites.
Well, also, you have seen in the photograph of the website that our place is special because it is not an ex-clandestine center. People wasn't disappeared or murdered there. We are just a park, a public space where people can go to reflect and think about the history of our country, but there's not an center of murder, or militaries weren't actually there. Other places in our country are ex-centers, so we have like a very huge difference in our work with them because we are a public park, and schools come there to go there to learn about what happened, but it's like a symbolic place. It's not a place where the facts actually happened. So we try to articulate with others memory places of our country that are ex-jails or ex-clandestine centers.
Okay, thank you. And another one last question maybe. Did you use Audacity for recording and cutting the podcast? By Stefan Burger.
There was a colleague of us that made the work of gluing our voices with the sounds. We don't know exactly what program did he use.
Okay.
Most common are Audacity and Anchor could be, I don't know exactly.
Yeah. Doesn't matter. And there's a similar question to Martina by Nisay. Could you please tell me a bit more about the application for the tablet? What kind of program are you using?
Template program was Unity, I think. Yeah, Unity was the starting point. So, okay, maybe I can explain a bit how the app is used, because I think it's a bit unclear. So that is the reason why it will be used for now only on the site, because of the copyrights, and because app is there are some technical reasons, because when you enter the app, it asks you to click on the focus point, which is Flower Memorial, and when you do that, it transfers you in the app based on orientation, where you are standing. So from that point, you can see buildings around you. So for now, it is impossible to make it like online and to give permission to everybody to, you know, go on site like that. And it is possible only in our memorial just now. But because of these new situations around the virus and the decline in groups and visitors, we will definitely think more about the ways, maybe to transform the applications and to put it on web, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay, very good, nice. Thank you. And okay, one final question for all of you. I think this is a good question by Rafaela. Are there other memorials in Argentina that I can ask in Croatia as well? Are there some other memorials in your countries?
Yes, Argentina is a very, very large country, and during the last dictatorship, militaries used to murder people in those clandestine centers that weren't official jails. So in every spot where they used to do that, there's now a museum, a history museum, a museum of memory, and in every province of our country, there are lots of them, sadly, because there was the last dictatorship was something that occurred in all of our place. So
yes, maybe the difference with the park is that the park is I think it's a unique place with a monument with all of the names of the victims, because in the site, memory sites, the different ones, there are maybe the names of the victims of that clandestine center, but the park has all the names. The memorial has all the names.
Okay.
Also, as Anitza said earlier, we are next to the river because militaries used to throw the victims to the river. So that's why the park, the memorial park, is next to the river.
Okay. Thank you. And Martina, in Croatia?
In Croatia, there is only one another memorial based on the history of Second World War. It is the Memorial Lipa Pamti, which means Lipa remembers. And it is a very small museum near the Slovenian border, where in 1944 a large number of civil people are murdered in the village on that spot. Few of the villagers who were not at that time in the village, they survived, and they made an initiative to make a memorial to those civilians who were murdered there. But there are some talks about maybe Jewish museums, and there is also, I forgot to mention that a few days ago a memorial center for Roma people was opened in Uštica, which is a part of one of the units in Jasenovac, where mostly Roma people were killed. So I think it's a great start.
Yeah, it's interesting for Steffen Jost because he's an expert about the history of Sinti and Roma in Dachau.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much to all of you for the questions, and a big virtual applause for Nisay, Anitza, Martina, and Lila for the very exciting presentations. And yeah, we are very honored that we had so inspiring presentations from all around the world. Yeah. So now I think I hand over to Steffen for the breakout rooms.
Exactly. So yeah, thank you very much from me as well. So I make this short. So Dominic will put you all into these breakout, or us as well, into these breakout sessions for 15 minutes right now. It'll be automatically. So if he clicks the button, we'll all be in these separate rooms. And so you can just talk about whatever you want, but if you would like to, if you need some inspiration for a group discussion, I think 2 questions might be interesting. The first would be, what can we learn in education from the experience of the last 5 to 6 months? And second one, which forms of digital education have been especially useful for memorial sites? So what have we learned from the 5-6 months, and which forms of digital education have been proven useful for memorial sites? So
I also wrote them into the chat, the questions.
Perfect, thank you. So, and then yeah, I'll give over to Dominic, and to everyone who now uses the opportunity to perhaps leave us, or wish you a good, I don't know, morning, afternoon, evening, night, wherever you are right now. And for everyone else, we'll see each other in like 15 minutes again for a short final round here. Okay, Dominic.
So,
okay, yeah, perfect. When we are doing like trainings with our guides, or been doing like digital seminars for a few now, we're always joking that the good thing about using Zoom in these breakout rooms is that nobody can be late anymore after working in small groups. So it still so this is works really well as that. But I was just also cut off in mid-sentence. In my group.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I cannot have my final word.
Yeah, in our group was the same.
So yeah, but it sounds good. Yeah, we had an interesting discussion in my group. I hope you as well. So we thought that we have about 8 minutes left in our time schedule. So if somebody would like to use the opportunity to say something, add something to the general discussion, then we now would be like a good point. So if somebody would like to add something, feel free now.
Can I have something very quick?
Yeah.
Because it's like now 10:30, and then I have another task to do too. So thank you for Lutz and Steffen, if
Yes.
I'm make it right. And thank you for every other speaker, Martina, Alina, Annie, and others, and then also for the participation of participants. And I like to have this. Maybe if you have any kind of this talk, please let me join, and because I really love it, and I want to know from different organizations how to deal with and to keep in touch. The COVID cannot distance us, but bring us more closer with this platform. So, thank you once again, Lutz and everyone. And I would like to say goodbye now. I cannot attend anymore. And apologize me if I have any not the right explanation or will come close to your question. Thank you.
I don't know. I think it was so valuable, this encounter with you, this virtual encounter for you. So you're all invited to come to Dachau. We are really, really happy to welcome you there and so meet you personally. But also, I think it was so fruitful. Maybe we could repeat this meeting every, I don't know, 1 month, 3 months, or so to see how everything develops, how our work develops, to see if there's any progress. And I also want to make a little bit of advertising because, you know, we were so desperate at the 16th of March when we had to completely close down our Memoria site, where we usually every day work with school classes, with army groups and so on. And then in our Zoom meeting, we had the idea, oh, if the people cannot come to us, we should try to come to them. And so we decided to start this digital live tours where there's even interaction possible, because the people can ask us questions during the tour about the site. So so if you want, just have a look at I posted in the chat These are the videos we already produced. It's about 25 or 26. I don't know the precise number. And I think the next one will be in Italian on Thursday. So it's usually a Tuesday and Thursday at 4 o'clock. You can watch us live, and you can ask us questions. And would be happy to have you as our guests, at least in our virtual tour.
Okay.
Unfortunately, no, there's not, the offer in English is not so big yet, but there are also in English some tours.
And I just had the idea from Christina Dilica, who asked about the links we shared here to collect them somewhere. So I just created quickly a Google Doc that is free to edit. So yeah, Max and I, we will post some of the projects and links that were presented here there, but anybody will just keep it online. So please use it to, if you have any interesting projects that you would like to share, you can just put them there. I just see some people already are in there. So yeah, feel free to use that for sharing links to interesting projects. Very good. Okay.
I think it was a fruitful discussion, very interesting from whichever side one looks at it, whether someone is studying history or is just interested as a visitor or is interested more in memory studies or whatever. It's a good group. Maybe it was created spontaneously, but I think everybody has lived up to its expectations, and it would be a good idea if we can organize it, let's say, in 3 weeks or in a month or so, or maybe we can create a forum, because while we were talking those 15 minutes, new issues came up. Unfortunately, it just stopped as soon as we were starting to, elaborate on them. But I must say congratulations to all of you. You've been very good. I have some things that I disagree with some people, but that's okay. The important thing is to find what we agree on and move ahead, because history is very interesting in any social meaning. And since we were talking about atrocities, because these were atrocities we were talking about in Germany, in Cambodia, in Argentina, in Croatia, and elsewhere, of course, like Rwanda. It's good to have a second or a third discussion on these issues. Maybe we discuss a few more sensitive matters in depth. I wouldn't like to discuss them now, but we can discuss them in another chat, maybe, or meeting. I don't know. It's up to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, Max and I, when we talked beforehand, we thought that we have some more colleagues from around the world that have interesting projects. So we thought when this one goes well, we'll go on and perhaps organize a second one, probably not in 3 weeks. So it's the summer holidays coming up now for us as well, but and there's a lot of online talks right now happening. So yeah, but I guess I liked it very much. So we'll probably do something like this in fall again. I think the idea was bringing together people from all around the world was very fruitful. So in that sense, yeah. Thank you very much all for participating, for being here, and especially thanks for everyone presenting today. And in this sense, yeah, goodbye.
Yeah, goodbye. Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone.